Hey Queen, what's up? Before we begin this episode of the Champagne Diamonds podcast, I wanted to jump on quickly and say hello and just thank you so much for your patience. This episode was supposed to air last week. I recorded it, it was ready to go, and before I could upload it, something in me is like, no, wait, just be still right now. Just be still right now. So I listened, and it was very difficult for me because I want to be a consistent source of support and guidance as you are navigating your journey. And I had to really learn how to take my own words into practice, which is giving yourself grace. So I'm giving myself grace this week for last week, and I hope that you have had some time of stillness for yourself over this past week. And I hope that this episode really just inspires you to reconnect to your authentic truth. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into this week's episode of the Champagne Diamonds podcast, which was technically last week's episode, but I hope that you enjoy it. I hope it speaks to your heart, your soul, and your mind. And I will be back here next week for another episode. Thanks, Queen. Enjoy. Welcome to the Champagne Diamonds podcast. I am your host, Nadine Russell, and I'm so glad you decided to join me today. This podcast was created for queens, women who are ready to step into their power, women who are looking towards their vision and embracing the journey along the way. Women who are ready to be unapologetic about being their authentic selves. If this is you, keep listening. Soul searching can be such a beautiful thing. And I was called to do some soul searching this month. I didn't know that this was the journey for August for me, because believe me when I tell you, I had different plans in mind, but I've just really come to that conclusion that it doesn't always matter what we have in mind, because what we have in mind is not necessarily what God has in mind for us, what the divine has in mind for us, what our soul really truly needs. And in this day and age, in this society, it can be really difficult to really hone into that and tune into that. Because let's face it, we live in a society where everything is hustle bustle, everything is, always happening around us. We have to be on top of everything. There's the news going with what's happening in the world. There's our family, there's our friends, there's different situations that's happening at any given time. And if we disconnect, even just for a few hours or a day or two, you can end up feeling extremely disconnected from everything and everyone. And especially coming out of this global pandemic, when so many people were feeling separated and distanced from people just really want to feel close to each other again. People just really want to connect with each other again. And I completely get that. And that was really my thought process for the month of August, to connect more with my audience, to show up more, to have a solid plan in place for creating content and just being able to be that support that I know my audience needs right now. But there was a different plan. And that plan was really about me going inward. And it's beneficial because the fact is that I can only lead as far as I am willing to go. And this is something that I learned last fall from the great John Maxwell. Dropped some words of wisdom in a seminar I was attending. And it's so true. It's so true. The thing that usually holds us back isn't always outside of us. A lot of time, the things that are holding us back are the things that are within us. And I know you know some of these things. These things show up as limiting beliefs. These things show up as doubts. These things show up as fear. And we get so caught up in what society is telling us to do and looking at the external factors of things like our bank account and the news and the weather and all these things that are happening on the outside, that sometimes we lose track of what's happening within us. And that was my call this month, for the month of August. That was my call, was to just go inward. And it's something that I struggled with a little bit, because I was like, man, I should be doing this. I should be doing that. This is not what I planned. But in going inward, it took me on a journey to really redefining and rediscovering my path, my purpose, what I am truly called to do, and where I needed to be confronted with where I am, with where I want to go, and what I really want to do in this world, and living in my truth as much as possible. And today I had so many beautiful, beautiful realizations of where I am and what's next, which is not something I was considering looking into, but that's the beauty of just releasing. That's the beauty of allowing. That's the beauty of trusting that you are always divinely guided and provided for. That's one of my favorite affirmations. I am always divinely provided for. I am always divinely guided and provided for. It's the affirmation. And it's one of my favorite affirmations. And the thing is, it's so true, because a lot of times we find ourselves in situations because we are in this realm of feeling like we have to force everything and everything has to be a certain way. And we beat ourselves up when it's not. I know I was beating myself up a lot. And it just came to that point where I just felt like Spirit was just saying, Nadine, chill. Nadine, relax. Nadine, take it easy. Just trust that everything's going to be okay. Because there is a bigger purpose. There is something that you're called to do that requires you to reconnect with your truth. And I'm in the middle of a rebrand, if you will, which is so funny for me to say this, because one of my dear friends and I were connecting, and we're having this conversation at the beginning of the month. And she was, giving me some wisdom. And the topic of the rebrand came up. And I'm like, that's so weird, because I don't feel like I need to do a rebrand, or I need to, change anything really. I think I just really want to strengthen what I already have. But it's a beautiful thing when you have friends that are also in alignment with their path and their truth and are living their purpose. Because when you connect with other individuals that are standing in their truth and living in their purpose, beautiful things happen. Beautiful things happen. So what I really want to talk about in this episode of the Champagne Diamonds podcast is empowering yourself to be and becoming comfortable with your truth. I think that's going to be like the main topic for this episode. And I already feel like I've kind of rambled on a little bit and kind of got sidetracked, but I also believe that nothing is a coincidence. There are no accidents. So I hope that you got some good, tangible wisdom and insight from what I shared leading up into this point. And I'm just speaking from my heart right now, because I am not considering the structure of this podcast right now. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm a lot more casual and underdone than I usually am for these episodes. But I feel like this message and the depth of this message just requires this transparency, this vulnerability. And there's so many layers to this. So I'm just trying to give a clear, concise message that someone can walk away with something good for their soul. And through a part of that, I'm just sharing some of my journey and my revelation, and maybe you can relate to this. So for me right now, as I was saying with this rebrand that is apparently happening right now, I was called back to an earlier time of when I was in this state of flow, in this state of allowing, where I launched a brand, and this brand had a statement of inspiring you to be. Inspiring you to be. It was called BFL, Beauty, Fashion, Lifestyle is what it stood for. And I turned it into a word, BFL, and the tagline was inspiring you to be. And I'm feeling called back to that message. Because on this journey, it's been a long journey, entrepreneurial journey, self-love journey, personal development journey, lifestyle journey, everything, all kinds of journeys. They've been long. And I know you can agree with me when I say that these journeys are long, okay? Because once you start these journeys, once you realize you're on these journeys, you just continue on these journeys. A lot of times we think we can, get out of the journey and there's the finish line and that's it and that's all. But then we realize that nah, boo, it ain't like that. Because especially if you have embarked on a healing journey, oh Lord, I know you feel me. I know you feel me. It doesn't matter how much shadow work you do. It doesn't matter how much forgiveness you do. There's still more. There's still more. There's layers. There's depths. And you got to go deeper. You're going to be called to go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And it can be so challenging, but it can also be extremely beautiful at the same time. And if I had a word to describe this year, especially this month, it would definitely be challenging. Extremely, extremely challenging to be able to release what I feel like I need to be doing and to allow what God needs me to do, right? So with all of that being said, inspiring you to be. So there's going to be a little change ups, going forward, coming around to my brand in a sense. Not big, huge changes, because I always like to tweak here and there, especially like, for example, my Instagram bio, so it can be more on point with what's happening and the messages that I'm delivering. So with that being said, inspiring you to be is what I'm really, really called to, being reminded of that place. Because right now, especially in business, there's a huge call to like niche and get super niche. And, I'm not saying anything against niching or anything like that. It's important. I went to school for marketing. I know it's very important. It's very valuable. There's a place for that. And I think one of the things, especially if you're tuning into this and you're a multi-passionate, for myself, multi-passionate creative, or you're just really passionate about a lot of things, it can be very difficult to niche in the sense of, splitting yourself up. Because what I found is I kept compartmentalizing myself and having to show up here as this person and having to show up here as that person, having to only share this over here and then create this business for that and then and it was very difficult. And I had to come to a place before now where I was like, you know what, Nadine, you can show up fully as you are. You can show up fully as yourself. It is okay to be exactly as you are with all of your talents and gifts and abilities and scars and vulnerabilities. You can be all of this. You don't have to dumb yourself down. And in earlier episodes of this podcast, I've talked about that, just shining your light and just being true to who you are and not allowing others in society to make you feel small and constrict yourself and fit into their paradigm of who you should be. So being called back to this whole idea of helping women to just be who you are, and understanding the importance of you being you. And I think because I have given so much of myself in everything that I have created, and creating is like my favorite thing of all times. I love creating stuff. And this is one thing I love when I get to work with these amazing women who have these fantastic dreams and these fantastic ideas, and being able to help them bridge the gap between this is where I'm at, this is the idea that I have. How can it connect? How can I achieve that time, space, reality to be able to do that thing I really want to do in the now? Which can be very overwhelming and very challenging for a lot of people. I know I've been challenged with that in my own personal journey. And that's one of the things that I'm really excited about, because a lot of times we feel like that thing that we want, we can't have it. That dream is so far away, but you can be you and be where you are and still achieve aspects of that dream and still be able to move forward and move towards that dream. And I know this because this is my journey. This is what I'm doing. And, I'm feeling just really called to remind you that you don't have to wait. You don't have to wait. There's things that you can do. There's small steps that you can do now that are going to allow you to get closer to that big dream that you have. No one that has achieved a massive dream just woke up and jumped into the dream. There's steps, there's a journey, there's a process in between that. So I just want to encourage you that if you are feeling discouraged, just tap into being your truth. Tap into being where you are and taking the steps that you can take now to achieve that bigger goal and vision that you have for yourself, and know that it is possible. So I'm in a space right now of really just wanting to remind myself and help other women to know that you can just be you, like be uniquely, unapologetically, truly you. And I try to look into all different ways that I can box this down and, niche it down some more. But the thing is as individuals, and I'm not talking about business. And I think this is why it's always been a struggle for me, because the business aspect and who you are as a personal brand is very different. And when you are selling yourself, I feel like it's a disservice for me to sell myself as something very small when I know that there's more to me. And I've fallen into that trap of trying to fit into that box as myself, as a personal brand, being super narrow, but there is more. And feel free to disagree or agree, but that's just where I am right now in my journey. And I feel like my niche is any of the women and even men that can relate to that can say, you know what, like me as an individual, in order for me to be in my truth, this is everything that I come with. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that is inspiring and helpful to anyone that might be tuning in right now. But let's move more into the being comfortable with the truth of who you are. Because let's be real, being comfortable with the truth of who you are is not always easy, because society has an idea of who we are and who we should be. Our parents have an idea, our friends have an idea, our coworkers have an idea, our bank account has an idea, our social media has an idea. Everyone has an idea of who we are. And the fact is, their truths of who we are may not necessarily be wrong, because that is based on their perception. And if we're not fully embodying our truth of who we are, sometimes we give off perceptions that may not be accurate, or perceptions that may not resonate with the real truth of who we are. But here's the thing, these perceptions and these truths of who we are can be changed at any time once we make the decision to do what we need to do, regardless if that is our inner work, our outer work, to be able to achieve the truth, the true, real truth of who we are, the truth of how not only how we view ourselves, because sometimes the truth of how we view ourselves can be very discouraging, especially if we're not where we want to be, but the truth of how the divine sees us. We might look at ourselves and we might have this desire to be perfect, or people on the outside looking in might look at us and feel like, oh, that person is perfect, or that person's trying to be perfect, or we put ourselves in a situation of trying to be perfect. But here's the thing about the divine that's so beautiful, is that we are perfectly imperfect. And that's what makes us so beautiful and so deep and so rich, is because we are so different from each other. But being different doesn't mean less than. Being different means just being true to who we are. And I really just want to encourage you guys, as you're listening to this, to ask yourself, what is my truth? What is my truth? Because the thing about your truth is that you can change your truth at any time. It all starts with you. We have so much power within ourselves and we don't even realize it. So right now I can look and I can say my truth is that I want to do more. I want to help more. My truth is that I am sitting here recording this podcast episode right now. And there's certain things that I can do in the now that confirms that truth. But as time changes and as we grow and as things change, we realize that we evolve and we create different truths. So an hour from now, my truth is no longer that I am recording this podcast episode, because I would have already finished recording it and uploaded it and moved on with my life. But in this moment, that is my truth. But an hour from now, my truth is that I recorded a podcast episode and I uploaded it. It's in the past tense. And I need to wrap up this episode really quickly here. But let me know if you guys want me to go deeper on this topic, or do a training or a teaching on this topic. Let me know. Reach out to me on Instagram at Entice the Brand if you want me to go deeper into this, because in order for me to give you the fullness of the inspiration I received about this topic would take a long time. And I just wanted to make sure that I was giving you enough in this episode that you can sit with it and ponder it and really ask yourself that question, like, what is my truth? And being comfortable with your truth, not the truth of what everyone else expects you to be. So if you are following me on Instagram, I love you. I thank you so much. I appreciate you. If you're not, definitely go ahead, touch base with me on Instagram. I'm on a little bit of a hiatus. I never expected it, but it was necessary. And I'm just really excited to connect more to myself in this time and to be able to show up in such a beautiful way for you on Instagram, to really continue to empower you, to inspire you, to motivate you, and just empowering you to be, empowering you to become more comfortable with your truth. I love you so much. Thank you so much for listening. The Queen Klass is currently on a revamp, y'all. And this was the month I was planning on launching it. I was also planning on doing a business challenge this month and a self-love program at some point this month. But listen, God had different plans, and I'm completely and totally okay with that. And I'm just grateful for everyone that's been with me on this journey, that's been supporting me on this journey, that has been giving me grace on this journey, because I've been having to give myself a whole lot of grace. I love you so much. I appreciate you. And I will talk to you very soon in the next episode of the Champagne Diamonds podcast. Bye for now, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Champagne Diamonds. I look forward to seeing you again in the next one.